Well, today the topic I'm going to be talking about is chess psychology and how it's probably the most underrated topic in chess. A lot of you probably didn't know what to expect when you heard I was going to be talking about chess psychology, and that's probably because it's the most underrated topic. Not many people know a lot about it. It's very important. I reckon, in my opinion, it's one of the most important topics in chess because the mind state you go into the game and before the game affects every single move you're playing. And happens. Many players fall into these traps that I call psychological pitfalls, because basically it's just a trap, and most players fall into them on a regular basis and they don't even realise, and then after the game they don't realise why their position just crumbled or why they just lost to this lower rated player. So that's throughout the lecture I'm going to be covering a lot of what I think these psychological pitfalls are, and I've tried to cover the most common ones, the ones that I believe happen or occurred in the most range of levels of games and the most players. So my first sort of subtopic is how stronger players think versus how average players think or weaker players think, in not actual moves and such, but their sort of take on certain positions and so like this. So before I give it anything away, I'm going to play through a game. Tile versus carers, and I'm going to get you guys to assess the position. G3, G2, knight 6. Castles, 7. Everything looks quite normal so far. Should be 7, let's see, 3. Castles. G5. G6. D takes C5. A4. B6. That takes B6. That takes B6, and we reach the position after knight D4. Now, there's two different ways. Well, there's probably more, but there's two ways black and white can assess this position. There's a weak player way, and then there's a stronger player way. Would anyone like to have a go at trying to assess this position? I'm not saying this, it's not like weak players are going to say these exact same things and strong players are going to say the exact same things. There's a million ways to do this, but there's basically there's a certain concept that you can analyse not just this position, but any position. Who do you think's better and things like this? There's no wrong way to look at this position, really. It's all about playing good moves, so I would like to just suggest who's better.
Well, I'm going to say, just as a start, that white's better. He's got a better pawn structure, or at least a more compact pawn structure. He's got the two bishops, which might be an asset in, particularly in the long term, as the centre opens up even further. And yeah, he's got a firm positional grip at this point in time, I think, over D4. So on the whole, I would suggest that white's slightly better.
Yeah, that's a very fair assessment of the position. And it turns out white's advantage may look a lot more than it actually is, or if he even has an advantage. Because in this position, all of the positional factors are working for. Yes, he has control of the critical D4 square, which is usually important when black has this isolated pawn. He has the two bishops. Black's pieces don't look very well, except what a lot of players with white might do is they might underestimate black's position and just go on that their position is much better. For example, black's controls the E4 square, which is quite important in this position. He's got good development, and it's very easy for him to improve his position. This rook's already on a nice bowl. It might come down to one of these squares later. Next, he might just move his queen and put his rook on e8. When you're trying to, and when you're looking at it from white's perspective, it's not that easy as black to actually improve your position. So, white might not even have an advantage worth mentioning, even though he has this. But I'm not trying to show you this position to mention that sort of deep positional factor that black can easily improve his position. But I'm trying to show it to you to explain that white may very easily overestimate his position and just think he can play anything to continue gaining advantages and win the game. He must think his positions very well, and that is a very bad thing to do in terms of psychology. So, we'll see in the next couple of moves. After black played h6, bishop f4, queen d7. Tal played a3 here, which isn't a very good move. Tal probably underestimated black's position and thought he'll just let the position play itself. His position's got too many more positional factors. But as we can see, black quickly gets a big initiative. Bishop h3, queen d3. F1, and we can see that black controls the e4 square very well, and after he trades this, then he gets rid of the e4 square, black plays rook e4. And as we can see, a couple moves ago, it looked like white had this amazing position. He had control over the d4 square, the two bishops, the isolated pawn. It looked like everything was working for him, and if you overestimate the positional factors too much, sometimes you'll ignore your opponent's play, and they will quickly get the initiative. Had anyone ever just playing a game and they think their position's really, really nice, and then suddenly the next 5 moves it just crumbles and it just turns to your opponent getting the initiative, or your opponent getting a very good position? That's one of the worst ways you can think in chess. Is from that position where while we're thinking, a very sort of closed mind way to think, like, yes, I've got this, I've got that, I've got this, I've got a big advantage, I've got a massive advantage, black can't do anything, his pieces are bad. And what a bad way to think about this for white would be, is that black is undermining black's position and saying, yes, his position's bad, I can do whatever I want, which is usually what weaker players do, opposed to stronger players, which try to look for opportunities in the other person's position and try to look for basically equal counter chances and try to disprove their own ideas. Where weaker players or average players, they try to look for ways to verify their own ideas and not to look at the other person's things and try to convince themselves that their moves are good and the opponent's moves are bad. And this is what's called as verifying and falsifying your ideas. Basically, verifying your ideas is what usually weaker players do, as I've just said. And that can lead to a number of bad things. It's the first basic thing that you can fall into. If you try to verify your own ideas and just try to falsify your opponents, then that will lead to you missing opportunities from your opponent, missing counter-attacking options, and that will just lead you down and down into more psychological pitfalls. So, weaker players make quick judgments about the position. They are usually, when I hear people analysing out there, and I know certain people, they look at a position, they just say, yes, white's slightly better, white's clearly better, white's completely winning, and stuff like this, and they make quick jump conclusions to the position. They also try to support their own ideas and judgments on the position by trying to convince themselves mentally that their moves are good, which is usually comes with a big bias. Where stronger players have a general idea about the position, but they don't make a set conclusion, because as stronger players have sort of evolved in chess, they've sort of gained a certain respect for the complexity of it, and they don't just jump to certain conclusions. Like, as Keres says in that position after knight d4, let me try this again. As Keres says in this position, he says, White's advantage may look more than it actually is. And he shouldn't underestimate Black's counter-attacking chances. These rooks will quickly come to open files, which this one already is. This might come to the C file, the rook might come here. He's got control over this square. And Charles probably thinking in the game that his positional advantage was actually much more than it actually was. And therefore not looking for counter-attacking opportunities from his opponent. So I'll set up another position now. I'm going to set up a very well-known opening position, and I want you guys to pretend that you've never seen it. Because it's a good example on how to think and how not to. Go into King's Indian defense. And White plays F4. Actually, in the first ever King's Indian game ever played, White played this, and I suspect that this actually happened to him. So, from White's point of view, pretend that no one has ever seen this. This is just no one knew theory. This has just been played from the White side and from the Black side. White, a weaker White player, would trying to be verifying his idea that his center is incredibly strong. He controls all the squares. Black is extremely cramped, and White will just develop, and Black can't do anything against it. That's what he'll tell himself. And he'll tell himself that eventually he'll hit with E5. Black probably doesn't have that much counter-attacking opportunities at all, and he'll just safely develop. And this is a critical error. Well, Black, what do you think? What White should be thinking is, does anyone want to take a guess what White should be thinking if he's trying to keep an open mind about Black's position and not to mine it?
I think there's one problem there. I often find pushing up pawns that weaken the base of the pawn chain.
Yep.
And although about 99 years ago when I looked at the chess book first, someone said in the diagram that was the ideal position for White.
Yep.
In fact, I have never seen any master game that has got that position, and it seems to me that going forward in that far that the pawns are going to get ripped apart and the base of the pawn chain is going to be damaged.
Yes, I mean, you're completely right about White has advanced his pawns forward. He's weakened all these squares here, leaving all these holes in his position. Okay, he's gained some time in the, he's gained some space and control of the center. What a good White player would be thinking here, or psychologically good, would be thinking, okay, I've got this strong pawn center, but if I can complete development and if Black doesn't counterattack me, it will remain, I'll have an advantage because I'll have these 4 pawns here. However, and then he'll try to falsify his ideas to find equal opportunities for his opponent. I have left all these holes here, and if Black can strike out my center quickly and attack these holes before I have time to complete development, because I have wasted 4 moves on moving these 4 pawns up, then Black might be able to get some counterplay against here. It's not as closed-minded, and it will look for equal opportunities here. And Black can attack the center pretty quickly in these lines with C5 or a quick castle, so usually Black castles, Knight F3, C5, and Black gets counter-attacking chances here. And White, if White was in his good mindset, he would accept this and move on, where if White was in his verification mindset, he probably wouldn't be looking for opportunities, and he'd try to convince himself that these moves from Black are bad. He'd be like, this is a horrible move, now I've got a space advantage after this, blah blah blah. And he'd convince himself of this, and later on Black will eventually open up the center and White's king won't be very safe. Of course it's fine for White to play this opening, but that's basically the big problem with how you evaluate positions and assess positions, that you shouldn't always try to get your emotions mixed up with the game. You don't want to always be looking at your position as better. And that's why you should always, in chess, trying to think objectively. Usually if your emotions get mixed in, then then you'll try to, your biases will kick in, and that will lead to a whole another pitfall of traps. So, not only when you use falsifying to find your own flaws and to actually help you in practical play, because when you do falsify ideas, you look for countering and attacking opportunities for your opponent. Not only does it help you in while you're playing the game, but it'll actually help you grow as a player, because you're always challenging your own ideas, and you're not too arrogant to say, oh no, my plays are completely flawless and stuff like this. So people that tend to falsify their ideas, usually to keep growing as a player, because they're always challenging their own ideas, learning the mistakes in their own play, and improving. So the verification method to playing, the way that a lot of people think when in certain games where they want to verify their own ideas, it might actually make you feel stronger when you're playing the chess game, and it may make you feel like you're playing, your moves that you play are stronger. But ultimately, you're just going to get irritated when your opponent finds counter-attacking chances, and the falsification method will actually help you be stronger. It will actually help you play stronger, and it will help you improve as a player. So that's one of the subtopics I'm talking about, is how stronger players think versus how weaker players think. Now I'm going on to probably the most common common topic I ever, or common, theme I see at pretty much everywhere with chess, is the concept of identity. How people always refer to their style or their openings and stuff like that. So I'd like to start with this identity topic by asking, basically identity is how you perceive yourself as a player. And it's probably the most common trap that people fall into when they play chess. Looking at yourself of who you are as a chess player, or who you want to be, can often get in the way of completing very simple tasks and very simple positions, and often ruin them. So I'd like to start by asking the question, why do people study opening so much? Why is that? And there's two reasons that psychological. One, because they feel like, well, this is the lesser, well, not really, but one is because when they're studying openings, when I find someone really wants to improve, they look to openings to improve their play, because they can feel like they've read a whole opening book and they've actually learned something, because they can go up there and they can play these moves and they can write down the variations, as opposed to reading a book on strategy and learning concepts through example games and things like this. With openings, you feel like you've learned, yes?
Jack, part of the reason I think also is that when you look online or in bookshops, 80% of the chess books are about openings.
Yeah, I mean,
so you look at that and you think, well, shit, edit that out. You look at that and you think, well, it must be bloody important because 80% of the books are about it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of authors publish opening books because it's probably easy to publish on. And a lot of people will buy it, but not necessarily. I don't think about most books are on openings. I mean, there's lots of books on other things, but people usually, when they think about chess books, they straight away go to the opening section. But yeah, I suppose that is. And also the other reason, as also you feel like you're learning, is openings sometimes feel like they represent you as a player. You can say my openings rather than my middle game or my end game technique or something like this. They feel like their openings are sort of a part of that, who they are as a chess player, and everyone will know that that's who they are because they play the London system, or they're super aggressive and they play this gambit variation where you sacrifice a knight or something like this. And that also, usually that's a very big trap that people fall into. And also, it doesn't just happen to openings. Sometimes people read endgame books and they look at theoretical endgames that really aren't going to help them, but they feel like they've learned something and they feel like they've grown in the endgame area, when really endgames you have to understand a lot about positional chess, and you can't just read a book and then be an endgame master. You can't just read like a couple of theoretical endgames and then think that you've grown as a player, which is basically the same as openings and such like this. And very often often people tend to get attached to their openings. They get too attached to their openings, and they're sort of reluctant to play other things. And also, when you're attached to your openings, it also sort of attaches you to that theme of that opening. I mean, I see people, they come out and they play the first move as c4 and they think they're some sort of positional genius. Just because they've played the first move, c4, when it has absolutely nothing to do with how they are as a chess player. And it's very dangerous. I mean, I see people, all they do is they look at opening lines which are tricky and stuff, and they think that makes them a trickier player, when in fact they should be studying other areas of the game. That's why sometimes, even though my favourite opening is by far the Sicilian defence, I sometimes just play openings I don't know that well, like maybe sometimes a Perk or a Modern or sometimes a Scandinavian, just so I don't get too attached and so I can sort of learn more about different openings and be a bit more flexible. I heard someone at the Ausday Weekend out there, and it's one of the people, they just recently started playing chess. And this other older person, about 1900, was talking to them, and he was just showing him like openings and stuff like this. Like, I memorized this opening line. It was here, 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 and then all I have to remember is this. And then he's like, oh, that's very interesting. I just got looking at these books, and he just showed him a couple books on the Benko Gambit, and I couldn't understand why he was looking at openings straight away. Maybe because he felt like he learned something or something like this. So I'm going to show a game now, and I'm going to be focusing on not just you don't just get attached to openings, but you also get attached to certain ideas in the opening, certain themes, and certain structures in the opening. For example, I'll show out this game here. I was white. It was a rapid game, so it wasn't the most accurate of play. Knight c6, knight c3, knight c7, 3, a6. Classic Taimanov. After knight here, castles. Now I'd like you to know there are long moves in this position. You can take on d4, you can play b5. Just recently, actually, in Hungary, against the Greek team, the player played this against me, this h5 move, which we'll see a bit later. The idea is basically to bring the knight to g4. Then white plays h3, and then the game sort of advances, and black might have tricks with knight there. So this is a line in this variation. But the main line is knight here, and the main move in this position is h3, but it gets a bit complicated. So I played knight f3, which I've played a couple of times. The main line, black played knight here. However, the main line, just for your information, went something like this, which I don't really like that much for that, because now white plays queen h5, he's attacking f7. After g6, white retreats back to f3, attacking this again, and after here he plays f takes g3. And as we can see, white has about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces developed. He's king, he's castle, so we'll count that. And now, if black retreats, which actually, this is a variation, white can play something like e5 and he gets a real nice position. So, perhaps, possibly knowing of this variation, my opponent played something else. Played the other knight there, which is perfectly fine. Where is this? Played this knight. g4. Okay, well I don't want my bishop to get taken, so I played bishop g5. Black played the move bishop d6, threatening h2, and now white played the completely logical move h3. Taking the knight, getting out of this now. Black's best move here is probably to play knight e5. Looks a bit weird because black's just gone there and back. And after takes, black's threatening this, and at some point white will defend this and play f4. It's just a different line, but my opponent played h5. And actually we've had this in 2 games, and I don't think h5 is a very good move here because, okay, white's not going to take this knight. Because after takes is going to be mating threats, and here black gets a lot of initiative and might be winning. But the point is that h5 in this position defends the knight, but eventually some pieces are going to get swapped off. Eventually the knight's going to have to come back, or white will eventually be able to take this and then hit with e5 or something. So eventually this knight's going to have to move. And then h5 just looks useless. For example, say it was like this position, it was black's move again. You get here, h5 just looks like a weakness. If black ever castles, this you might be able to take on f6, take here, and I don't think it's very good, even though we've seen h5 in similar positions. We've seen h5 after that Greek player played against me. Instead of 95, we saw h5 here. So it's a common theme in this opening. But in this certain position, I don't believe it's very good. And straight after the game, by the way, in the game, eventually Black did have to go back to e5, and White quickly played f4 here and got a really crushing position. Fortunately, I lost that game. It was a rapid game, and I didn't play with very good technique near the end. And by the way, Black never castled, I don't think. Well, he did at a move 50, but he could never castle because he had too many weaknesses over here because h5. And after the game, I went up and told my opponent, hey, I don't think h5 was a very good move in that position. And they instantly responded with, but it's a common theme in the opening. And I was like, yes, I didn't have enough time to actually tell them about it because the next round was up, but it's just because it's a common theme in the opening. Themes are supposed to raise your awareness of some ideas that can be good in some positions. But if you know that it's not exactly like theory, you're going to have to think for yourself. You're going to have to think if this move is actually good in this certain position, not just because it's a common thing. And I think a lot of people get sort of sucked into this trap. Also, it's not just moves like h5, and also h5 looks sort of pretty because the knight's hanging, so maybe that was another way that impacted. We've actually played this position twice now, and I actually lost both times, which we quite sad, but I got completely crushing positions in each time. I think Black's giving up this h5 move now. But it's not just with moves, it's also with different structures. Different structures, people just strive for these structures because they've seen them before, or they've had a good success in this, even though it might not be objectively best to go into that. So, moral of the story is don't try to get too attached to openings or the positions resulting from openings. I'll show another example. This is a game I played, actually I played it last night online. I was Black, d4 knight f6, c4 c5, d5, e6, knight c3. So it's Benoni, which main line so far. Here, e4, g6, knight f3. This is all fine. Black can play bishop g4. Play bishop g7, bishop e2, castles. White played knight d2, might be a bit premature. I mean, you can transpose and castle next move, which might be fine. a6, just met with a4, preventing the typical idea of b5. Now we can see it, knight b d7, queen c2, rook e8, and castles. Okay, so it's Black's move in this position. Does anyone want to suggest maybe a plan for Black in this position? A plan to just to advance his position? Anyone?
In these type of positions, I usually like playing along the lines of knight from d7 to b6, and then play for the c4 push.
Yeah. Sometimes Black does play knight b6 in the modern Benoni, but here, it sort of helps White because White can play a5 whenever you play c4, and you'll probably play a5 straight away, and you're not going to be forced back to retreat. He wants to play a5 in most positions anyway. But if you had this pawn up here, it'd be good. But so anyone has an idea of plans in the modern Benoni?
Surely you'd want to break the queenside then, given what you've just said.
Yeah.
Play for a queenside break with the aim of playing b5. So maybe something like rook b8, the aim of playing b5, or maybe playing, if you want to play more conservatively, b6, and then at the right point in time, maybe b5 after some preparatory sort of moves.
Yeah, that is the common plans in the modern Benoni. Try to get this b5 move in, and then try to play down these files, and often on the e4 pawn. And the plan that Ty suggested, it's not a bad plan, but the point I'm trying to make here is, Black played 95, and the point I'm trying to make is you don't always have to follow these plans like rook b8 and b5, but you should also keep an open mind and look for different play on other sides of the board. So here White played h3. The idea is he wants to play f4 and not allow any knights to come to g4. For example, f5 might be alright here. After knight here, threatening knight e3, and there might be tricks coming up. Might be alright for white though, because he might be able to kick it way after something like knight c4. But he played h3. And can anyone suggest a move here for black?
Something like finishing development, just bishop to d7.
I think bishop to d7. Okay, it makes sense, but white's last move, I think that traps the knight. Because the knight doesn't have enough space to come back to d7. It makes sense if you want to get b5 in or something along these lines, but black's going to have to play a bit more. Black's going to have to play a bit more precise here. I mean, 95 wouldn't make much sense if black didn't have a follow-up. Because it'll just be kicked back next move. White usually wants to play move f4 anyway.
G5.
G5, yeah, that's what was played. It basically, if white plays f4 now, black can take. He's got this outpost, his very bolstered knight on e5, which will be very strong, and also he's weakened mainly this square, some dark squares around his position, which is obviously critical in this position, because if we look at this structure, white's got these controlling light squares and these controlling light squares. His queen's on a light square, that's also on a light square. His dark squares are extremely weak, and he doesn't want to have to play f4 if he doesn't need to. So in this position, white went rook e1, and now that black has secured this square, what would the next move be, do you reckon? Knight g6 does make some sort of sense. You're moving the knight back, you're taking extra control over this, and you're opening up potential pressure on here, but it doesn't look very likely here. But the only reason you would want to do that is perhaps come here. And white might always just move back. Perhaps you could play something like here. If you ever play knight f4, bishop f1, then drop like a5, maybe put my knight in here, which we start with here. You wouldn't have to play knight g6 in this position if you... I mean, it's not being attacked or anything. Although it's not it. Okay, black played a move that doesn't... What black plays now is g4. And you don't really commonly see this in a Benoni position, because black, in his last two moves, has literally just marched the pawn on the king side when he's supposed to be playing on the queen side. And black's position here is actually very comfortable. White can't advance his pawns too quickly, and black might build up an attack on the queen side. I mean, it also looks logical, because very early in the game, white's moved his knight back from defending the king side, the h2 square, and back to here very early, and he's brought his queen out here, which also helped defend the king side. So it actually does make some sense now in this position to start advancing on the king side. This move made sense to stop here, but now that white has played rook e1, g4 is a powerful move. After h4, black played knight f7, taking this pawn. Now, my opponent made a bad move here. They blundered the pawn with knight f1, but after g3, black's position is perfectly fine here. Now, he's got this bolstered pawn here. He might want to play h5 at some stage. This never looks like an option, because you'll be left with weak pawns, and as we talked about before, this strong knight here. Black might want to eventually maybe try for f5 if he ever can, but he also will want to advance in the queen side now. We advanced over here, but now it looks like the plan is to come over and then make progress on the queen side. However, my opponent made a bad move, knight f1. Not very good. I mean, it's good if you can bring your bishop out somewhere to f4 and maybe secure the pawns, but obviously the queen was attacking the pawn, so queen takes pawn. White went knight g3. Makes some sense. His dark squares are quite weak here. Black played a nice move in this position. Can anyone... Any ideas of what it is? it's a tactical sequence from White's kingdom.
Not F3.
Knight to F3.
Check. Oh, he's got a pawn there, hasn't he? No,
Yes, he does it. But it was played anyway. Knight to F3 check. After bishop takes F3, pawn takes F3, this position is just absolutely amazing for black. The knight's coming to E5 next. As you should see, that knight was sort of what do they call that? It's a superfluous piece. The knight both the knight wants to be on E5, but now that's been swapped off. If white takes, knight E5 looks strong. You're going to take and play here anyway. The bishop might come to H3 at some point. That's just very good for black. But this is a pretty cool try. Obviously, there's not much else. And now black played bishop D4. Threats queen G3. And it's very hard for white to stop.
Oh, yeah.
If you play bishop E3, simply swap on E3 and take on G3. If you move the knight to F1, I'll take on F2 and mate you. If you move the knight to H1, G3 does look very strong. As we can see, white's pieces, especially the queen, aren't helping in the defense. My opponent is blunting again with king H2, queen H3 check, who's forced to move back, and queen takes G3, then white resign. So the moral of this story is that black didn't ever have to make progress on the queen side. Okay, he played A6 to prevent knight B5 in some stages. Usually black inserts A6, A4 to prevent any knight B5 maneuvers. But black kept an open, white kept an open mind about the position and didn't commit himself to just advancing on the queen side. He also looked at advancing on the king side, which was how the game was decided. And usually black does advance on the queen side in the modern Benoni, but there are certain times where he can just vary his plans. It's very flexible over here. So,
Jack, can I ask you a question?
yeah?
That plan that you came up with of playing G5, G4, how much time did that take you?
I don't think it took me too much time. I didn't really count how much time it took me, except after, usually if black can get a pawn to G5 and a knight on E5, it's usually a very good combination because it can never be kicked away, and the knight, usually in the modern Benoni you have less space, so after G5 the knight always has this square, G6, as we saw bishop D7 ran into F4 trapping the knight. So G5 is a common plan in this, common plan to get these two like this, they work very well together. Black controls some dark squares, the knights control light squares. G4 was the move that was quite hard to see, but it was quite an obvious follow-up to G5.
The reason why I ask is that I hear what you say in regards to keeping an open mind in the opening and not getting fixated upon thematic ideas because those ideas might not be the strongest objectively in any given position. But I suppose the reason why people look to thematic ideas is, well, for one, to save some time in the opening. If they're having to constantly, look for the maximal sort of, objectively strongest move, that might not be the most efficient use of time in any, in a given position.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I guess that's what that's chess. It doesn't just apply to the opening, but any position. If you spend more time, you're going to find stronger moves. And it's not just so much on just spending a lot of time on finding these ideas, but not just looking at over here. Because black might have just, if he was black in that, different player was playing as black in that position, and they were just looking, they were like, okay, I have to get B5 in, I'm going to spend 20 minutes looking at the best continuation. Am I going to play B6 to prevent A5? Am I going to play Rook B8 straight away, and get B5 in? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? Am I going to try to play C4, maybe Queen C7, C4? And the whole point is, black's looking at just that side of the board. He can look at, the idea is to keep your mind open. You don't have to spend heaps of time looking for the best moves, but just spend certain amounts of time looking at other sides of the board, looking at things like this. It's not about finding objectively the best move. I mean, I don't actually think knight e5 was the best move in that position. Maybe white could play f4 straight away and then prevent my cheapos and keep me away. But he didn't.